In this video, I wanted to talk about three things. First off, Stasis Weapons. Second, Stasis Mods and Stasis Armor. And a spoiler sort of thing from the Pastebin leak. I'll get to that when I get to that, so I don't want to spoil you right now. So if you don't want to be spoiled, I'll say it later when I start talking about it. But the first two topics are Stasis Weapons and Stasis Armors. So the first topic is Stasis Weapons. And I'd like to point out that I kind of called what they were going to do with Stasis Weapons based on Krausthesia. You can find that prediction in State of the Game video I put out on July 15th. But basically, these are the two things that I said would happen, is that they're going to be in the kinetic slot. Okay, based on Krausthesia. That's like a pretty fair assumption, right? And then I thought that, okay, they're either going to add status effects as just like an intrinsic stasis-like effect, and that's what makes Stasis Weapons unique. Or they're going to put, like, quote-unquote stasis-like perks in their perk pool. But, like, see, the problem with doing that is, like, there's nothing actually about that makes that, like, unique to Stasis Weapons. That's like saying, like, okay, only Warmind weapons create Warmind cells. Well, it's like, no, you could add that, like, effect to any weapon. Like, Bungie could add that to any weapon. There's nothing, like, hard limiting those weapons. But I think the Warmind cell sort of thing is a better version of, like, status effects in the game. Like, the Stasis Weapons, you literally need to give up a perk to get the stasis, like, status effect, if you want to, like, call it that. But, like, a Warmind weapon, a 7th Seraph, or literally a Warmind weapon, those, like, actually have passive effects, if you want to look at it like that. Yeah, you need the armor mod, but you need stasis to really benefit from the stasis crystal perk. Like, you have to completely change your subclass for that. Whereas, like, Warmind weapons, you just need to put some armor mods on. So I think it would be nice to see more, like, I guess, something like the Warmind weapons, I guess, with Stasis Weapons, is like, where it's just this, it's like literally a passive once you have this armor mod on, or this selection of armor mods. Yeah, we got some new elemental well stuff, but yeah, most of it is to do with, like, the stasis little crystals you can create. And oh no, if you can't create those crystals, if you don't run that aspect, you can't utilize that. It's like, not a big fan of this whole, like, having to, it's not really a passive. So it's like, Stasis Weapons are basically just an energy weapon in the kinetic slot. There's nothing really special about them. Like, they're not as big of a deal as anyone would say they would be. Like, they're just a different element, basically. So they didn't really change the game that much, other than the fact that you can use, like, elemental well mods a lot better with the stasis subclass now, because you have those weapons. So that's basically my take on Stasis Weapons. They're basically, like, whatever. Yeah, I could live with or without them. They're pretty, like, average. While we're here, why don't you go ahead and smash that like button. Stasis Armor. Now, this is something that is pretty contentious right now. Just armor in general is, like, I don't know why the community is so adamant about making, like, armor swapping the element free. Like, people clearly don't understand the design intent behind that. Like, you can hold 10 pieces of armor in each slot constantly. And this, I'll kind of touch back on this in the next part, the spoiler part. But, like, it's not that much. Like, how much armor do people actually run with in their inventories at a time? Like, do people, this is the thing I don't understand. Like, are these people just the people saying, like, I only want to run one armor set and just swap my mods every single time I go into a new activity, rather than, like, having, like, different armor pieces and you just swap the armor pieces around? Like, for me, for example, I have, like, a PvP loadout that I use, like, armor-wise, with, like, PvP Charged with Light, like, mods where I'm just using them for, like, the passives, like the melee and the mobility cooldowns and stuff like that. So I don't know. No one has really made, like, a really, really strong argument for the free armor, like, swapping. Like, the point of the cost is that Bungie wants it to, like, okay, yes, you can do this thing, and yes, we're not completely locking you out because this thing is kind of hidden behind an RNG wall of, like, what the armor naturally drops with. But we also don't want it to be this thing where you're constantly going into your armor, micromanaging every single mod and being like, okay, I'm going to do Prophecy, I'm going to change up to Arc, Void, Solar, and then I'm going to Last Wish, I'm going to go Void, Solar, Arc, whatever. Like, I see what they're trying to do with that. I think people are missing the goal of this, that they're trying to want you to incentivize you to get like different armor pieces and just swap the armor pieces. I mean, you can hold 10 armor pieces at a time, people. Like okay, let's say you have 3 armor exotics for each slot locked, so then that's still 7 like legendary armor pieces. I mean, there's stats aren't that big of a difference in the game, so like just have one of each element available, and you can swap between those basically. And as for Stasis Armor, more specifically, the new Charged with Light stuff looks really cool, and I love the theming of what Stasis Armor is going to be about. It's basically about, like, self-perpetuation. Like, I throw my grenade, I get grenade energy back. I use my melee, I get melee energy back. I use my super... The super one's a little different, which it's actually really cool, though. You create more Orbs of Light when you get super kills. That super stasis mod, I forget what it's called, but it's pretty cool. Like, I mean, that's pretty original, and I'm loving the theming around it, and especially when you look at it from the perspective of, like, when you use Stasis Armor with a Stasis, like, subclass, since Stasis subclass have longer ability cooldowns than, like, light subclasses, then it actually pairs better with Stasis cooldowns because of the, like, I throw a grenade, I get a percentage of my grenade energy back. So since it's a percentage-based thing, you're getting a bigger benefit of it when you're using the Stasis subclass. But other than that, you know, elemental parts of your armor, it's basically just your 4th slot. Like, okay, Stasis has the most interesting non-4th slot, like, elemental mods. I'll give you that. But generally speaking, it's just the 4th slot. And there's some new Stasis, like, Charged with Light, or Elemental Well mods. So those will be interesting when they get released through the seasonal activity thing. Alright, so here's my third topic. Again, this is going to be a spoilery thing, so click away now if you don't want to hear spoilers. I'm going to give you a couple seconds of me saying nothing, so you have the option. Spoilers, just reminding you a second time. And for a third time, there are going to be spoilers following this pause. Alright, so you're still here, so obviously you're willing to, like, hear spoilers. So, for anyone that's aware of the big Pastebin leak that's been going around the community for, like, the past year or so, I forget when it actually was released to the community, but it's basically on this website, Pastebin, where it's just, like, a bunch of, like, it's like a big Word file, like a big text document, basically. But there's one section where it says, Power Play. In Season 14, power level will only increase by 10 points. Okay, so that's already happened, obviously. Our power grind each season now is only 10 power. But then under that, it says, temporary fix until, quote, world without power, end quote. Now, what that makes me believe is Bungie's doing the thing that I've been suggesting for a little bit, where they're going to remove power from the game. Now, what I want to get at this is, like, why this is a big deal. First off, it's a big deal because, you know, no more power grind, Chase. Like, thank God. Like who enjoys the actual power grind? Like, oh boy, new season, I get to go grind some blues to infuse into my armor that I got 3 years ago that is, like, the best stat roll that, because I've yet to find anything that's actually better than it, so I haven't needed to replace them because getting, you know, stats is ridiculous in this game. And that leads me into the next thing. If there's no power grind, what do we grind for? You grind for better stats, better perks. You basically do what you're already doing, but it's going to be more obvious to more people. And what I'm hoping this will incentivize, and maybe what Bungie's thinking it'll incentivize, is that when there's no power to grind, you're, like, casual sort of players are going to be like, okay, what am I, like, what's going on? There's no power, what do I do? Like, how do I know my build's good? Because, believe it or not, some people look at their armor and they're like, oh, max power, okay, that's good. You know, that's what makes it a good piece of armor. It's like, what? That's like an arbitrary thing that you can move between different armors? It's whatever. But what this, I think, will do, and what I think their goal is here, is to sort of incentivize people to look more into build crafting. Because, okay, a few examples. This season, we got the new ghost mods that let you focus what your armor stats are going to be. Like, you can put on a mod on your ghost right now that, if you have the mod unlocked, obviously, that can make a minimum stat roll on random rolled armor. Now, I tested this with the corrupted engrams, or umbral engrams, sorry. And if you focus them into like intellect or whatever, like the different focusing, it does not combo with that, sadly. Either this is a bug or they're literally like took the same code so it doesn't interact the same way. But I think that's something that needs to be fixed. But that's basically the idea. Like, you put this mod on your ghost, and all the random world armor you get will have like a minimum of that stat value. I want to test this with Master Vogue because it has stat value leaning armor each week. So I want to test that if like I put on an intellect ghost mod and then I go do a discipline week. Will I still have the minimum 10 intellect and then whatever the high discipline of the actual roll on my Vogue armor? So that's something I want to test. And then another thing, like I was saying in the armor, the thing I wanted to get back to on that was, okay, if there's no power levels, then that means that it's purely build competency. It's purely like, okay, I don't have to worry about the power of this armor. I can just look at like, okay, I can equip this mod on here. So you'll need even fewer armor pieces and less inventory slots to take up. So like I was saying, you can hold 10 armor pieces, but you're not going to want to run 10 armor pieces while you're still doing the power leveling. You're going to want to like hold 2 to 3 at least open. You know, some people just, you know, they only have their one piece of armor every season. You know, they put everything in their vault or delete it or whatever. But this will free up people's inventory by a ton. This accomplishes multiple things. First off, it gets rid of blues, and like it gets rid of the necessity of blues, because you don't need slots to hold your infusion fodder. It also incentivizes people to actually make builds and look deeper into their armor and like care about their stats. Yeah, there's something to be said about like stats. Stats needed a general improvement. They did do that, however, with the Season 15 update to Well and Bubble, how resilience is now tied to their durability versus bosses. That's something cool. I'm not a big fan of like the number values they gave us, but yeah, it's cool to see them tying our stats to more parts of our gameplay. And I think this is going to be the biggest change since Infusion, to be honest, because this is basically the reverse solution of Infusion. So back when Infusion was introduced, it was introduced because power levels, you know, everyone was wearing the same armor and using the same guns basically because of power level. Well, weapons didn't tie into it at the beginning, if I remember correctly. But everyone was wearing like the Vogue armor. Like if you were level 32, I think, or 33, I forget the level, but if you were the max level, you were all wearing the Vogue armor because that was the level of that armor. And then when they added Infusion, it's like, okay, now you can use whatever you like as max power. It's like, okay, the other alternative solution would have been, okay, there is no power. So everything is equal automatically. There's no need for like the materials to be put into it, stuff like that. So basically, World Without Power gets rid of blues, gets rid of infusion matrices, which opens up a new sink for resources. So we already know we're getting weapon crafting with Witch Queen. So maybe that's what they're wanting to do, is like they're going to push us away from powering up our gear, and they want to incentivize us into building better loadouts. Thanks for watching or listening to this video. If you like this, a thumbs up is appreciated. If you want to see more of this content, hit the subscribe button to be subscribed. And just thanks for watching and have a good day.